as a lot of our Big 12 brethren receives a lot of transfer portal bad news, news for Oklahoma State just keeps getting better. And although I maybe didn't like the ivory tower of Mike Gundy during the season, before the season, but I really like it right now, that ivory tower and this transfer portal madness has Oklahoma State sitting kind of pretty.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on every single podcasting platform, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on Twitter at Aldeo State. Today, partially brought to you by PrizePicks. Get in on the action today. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Make sure you use that code, all one word, for a first deposit match up to $100. With PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made super easy. The transfer portal last year for Oklahoma State was not super easy. Thus far, we have more good news than bad news, but we also have even better news, and that is that Ollie Gordon II, Oklahoma State running back who appears to be definitely coming back, brought home some hardware. And it is kind of crazy to think about all of the legendary Oklahoma State running backs that have been here and not won this award. We've got the greatest running back in the history of football in Barry Sanders, who won the Heisman. Yes, we got to watch one of the greatest in the NFL to ever do it, also in college, Thurman Thomas. And now you look in the NFL, Chris Carson obviously had a very, very good run before his catastrophic knee injury type of situations. Justice Hill, he's getting in on the action. Yes, you watch the Ravens and Justice and Tylan Wallace have a nice little touchdown. And Ollie Gordon is the first. You got Jaylen Warren killing it with the Steelers, right? Tyreek Hill was a running back at Oklahoma State, not a wide receiver. Talking to you, Braylon. But anywho, it is kind of crazy to think about all of the amazing running backs. And we mentioned Chuba Hubbard maybe should have won this award. That did not. Now, you had Kendall Hunter at one point in time as a finalist, and you also obviously had Chuba Hubbard as a finalist. And now we've got the winner. And the beauty of it, again, is you're not hearing all the craziness happen in the transfer portal for Oklahoma State. You have heard a couple offensive linemen. I've heard of a couple more that are, in fact, coming back. So, again, this 80% of the roster return, 90% of the offensive linemen return, all for Ollie Gordon, partially because Ollie is helping his O-linemen get dollar bills as we speak. Now, yeah, there's a fun number floating around about Ollie Gordon. Let's face it. If Spencer was good enough for $460, then Ollie's going to be over $500,000 all day, every day. Could he easily approach $1 million? Probably. But I don't think he's going to do that because he's making sure that some of these offensive linemen, let's face it, some of these O-linemen have had multiple reconstruction style of surgeries. So it would potentially be in the best interest for some of these dudes to maybe not come back for another year unless they're getting paid, unless they're getting some sort of subsidization from maybe what Ollie Gordon is able to bring is better for some of these dudes than trying their hand at the NFL right away. The War Pigs 2.0 needs some more love. And thanks to Ollie Gordon, that's happening. But when you look across the Big 12, it has us very appreciative because we were in the madness style of situation last season. And it was just lack of direction, lack of communication. It wasn't lack of athletes. It wasn't lack of versatility with somebody like a Rob Glass who can squeeze more lemonade out of a very minuscule amount of lemons than anybody. But when you think and look back, and not only what Ollie Gordon was able to accomplish this season in, let's face it, 8 games? 9 games, maybe? And then you look at the fact that we're not having a lot of portal craziness. Once again, nothing major I would say, has come down the pipeline. Gundy leaving, yeah, I guess you could call it that. But the bigger story is that Ollie Gordon doesn't appear to be leaving. The biggest story at Oklahoma State right now is not about the transfer portal. It's about everybody staying. And then when you look at some of the casualties that we have had, which we'll jump into here in the next segment, the biggest story thus far is who's not leaving as opposed to leaving. And even better is that we might have some guys coming back that most of us didn't see as viable options. But as we circle back around once more, what does this mean for Oklahoma State that we now have a Doak Walker Award winner? Well, what this means is the Heisman campaign has officially already started for next season. The campaign for ending up in Arlington has already started for Oklahoma State University. Once again, not because of the portal, but because of the lack thereof. The guys that we lost have already, I don't want to say they're replaceable like they're throwaway players, but everybody who has left thus far already has an immediate tie-in to have a replacement. And then the Tyrone Weber situation, I mean, it's kind of wonky, right? It's a little odd, but clearly our mental health professionals think that it might be in Tyrone Weber's best interest to potentially stay at Oklahoma State. It's still kind of an odd situation, but nonetheless, we knew about Ladarius Webb, which I do think is a bad move on his part. But if he wants to go spread his wings and do something, so be it. We've got all the good news about the offensive lineman that continues to get better and better. And now we get to cover some more of what we have lost and exactly what it means. But what it means for you right now is, again, capitalization on dollar bills. PrizePicks is the funnest way for you to do that right now. Get in on the action with the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play any daily fantasy sports. All you got to do is pick 2 to 6 people, right? And then you're betting basically against the stat projections. That's it. Not all the pros, not all the sharks, not all the other craziness. You just pick 2 to 6 players on the stat projections and watch the money come in. Now, you know, basketball season now here, you can add the combo projections with football and basketball in the Specials League. It's a league created specifically for these combo projections. You want to go to different sports? Here's a good example. How about Cade Cunningham and Tylan Wallace? You also can play alongside some of your favorite players like rapper Meek Mill or comedian Andrew Schultz in the community plays. With the reboot policy, it's the only daily fantasy sports platform where the entries stay in even if the player gets injured in the first half. Football and basketball, the players rebooted in the second half. Daily fantasy sports and PrizePicks together gives you the only injury insurance policy that you need to be rocking and rolling with. So go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Make sure you use that code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege today to get yourself rocking and rolling. Capitalization means more in your pocket. All right. Portal happiness in Stillwater, America. Ladarius Webb, it's all right. Gundy. This is probably, as we discussed earlier, a good sign as to the young quarterbacks that we do, in fact, have on roster. Clearly, we're all awaiting Alan Bowman's decision. But no big surprise thus far. Now, you've seen new casualties, Blaine Green, Jaden Bray. You know, Blaine Green got kind of pushed down the depth chart after being one of our higher-rated wide receivers, and then clearly with his brother leaving last year to transfer to Wisconsin, you know, they're not exactly a package deal, but they came as a package deal. And I'm not saying that Blaine Green's going to go to Wisconsin, but it did make sense, right? And then when you look at Jaden Bray, it's another person with the return of DeJon Stribling. And now, you ready? Give yourself a drum roll. The return of Brennan Presley. It makes this move a little bit more sense. So you got Strib coming back. You got BP coming back. We have a lot of faith in the young cat and Cameron Hurd. We have a lot of intrigue in another young cat named Jalen Pope. We really like what we've been seeing out of Mason Gilkey, out of Pawhuska, Oklahoma. And let's not completely rule out the Bruce Arnold dollar bill situation. The NCAA has spoken. Iowa's spoken. If Arlen Bruce returns, I mean, that could add a completely new weapon. So, Blaine Green, it's expected. Jaden Bray, I wouldn't say it's as expected, but again, people try to discount some of the conversations and body language. I mean, you could see that the latter half of the season that Jaden Bray was psychologically didn't seem to be involved and having the same passion. So, yes, we've had a couple casualties, but literally nothing that hasn't been counteracted with something positive. So, with all the offensive linemen mostly coming back, Jaden Nixon, I think that's going to be kind of interesting. He's got options to weigh. This clearly is Ollie's club. I know Ollie wants Jaden back. But Jaden's a starter in this league, right? And same with Gunnar Gundy. May not be a Big 12 starter, but if anybody doubts Gunnar Gundy's ability to go lead a Tulsa or UTSA or North Texas to conference titles, I think you're mistaken. Elijah Collins, it's going to be kind of interesting to see if he's able to kind of get some go in this game. We know we love Sessi Lahe a lot, and we really like the development. Rodney Fields coming in as another scat back kind of guy that's going to be able to add some flavor. When you look at more wide receivers, could we have a couple young cats? Maybe. But the direction of the wide receiver room is already pretty set. It's already pretty squared away, and I think everybody in that locker room knows that. The defensive linemen, we've got three defensive linemen that have decisions to make. I would anticipate two of them do, in fact, come back for an extra year. So this is going to be a very senior-heavy team next season. This is going to be a very experienced ball club. With or without Alan Bowman. And now when it goes to the other side of the coin, the beauty of the management thus far of the transfer portal window has allowed us to, again, be much more selective. Are we going to go grab a couple guys? Yes. But it's not going to be a crap ton of people, and nor does it need to be. So with the potential news of BP coming back, plus all of the offensive linemen, minus maybe one, you're losing a couple wide receivers that I think we already have a pretty good indication on where we're going to go. Jaden Bray showed all the promise in the world. He just never quite got to that level. He got passed up by Leon. Leon is a type of wide receiver that Jaden Bray could potentially be, but there's no craziness happening because of the consistency, the continuity, the availability of the coaches in communication. And then plus, we have unselfish players that are currently helping other players get better NIL opportunities so they don't go anywhere. So when you think of somebody like Ladarius Webb, okay, well, cool. If you're getting Lyric Rawls back, you're probably in pretty good shape. If you're getting Trey Rucker back, probably in pretty good shape. If you lose Gunnar Gundy, but you're getting Garrett Rangel back, Zane Flores back, Malake Smith in, maybe a veteran leadership type of guy in the room, and Alan Bowman, okay, you're in good shape. You get Stribling back, you get BP back, you might get Arlen Bruce back, you lose Green, you lose Bray, you're still in good shape. And when it comes to that 50-50 high point ball, we've got young cats that can perform and potentially step up to do that role. We've got some PWOs that are going to have some opportunities. And part of this portal happiness is, let's think about ways that we, Oklahoma State, can excel in the transfer portal window. Are we going to be able to compete with the $1 million for the A&Ms and the Texases and the OUs of the world? No, we're not. Can we come up with that money? Yes, we can. But I would argue maybe we should utilize it better. Right? We bring up Texas Tech a lot. Why wouldn't Oklahoma State, if we can keep guys like Ollie Gordon, why wouldn't we then try to pivot as much money physically possible into our PWO program? Because we've got some preferred walk-ons that are good enough to not only be D1 guys, they're good enough to get scholarships elsewhere. But some of them, I would imagine, would likely prefer to come to a preferred walk-on situation at Oklahoma State, when Oklahoma State, typically, due to Rob Glass and some of the evaluation that we go through, is one of the best, if not the best in America, at getting our PWO program to starters at the Big 12 level to potentially NFL guys. So why don't we focus more of our allocation of resources into the PWO program? Because when you got guys like Ollie Gordon that are willing to redistribute, you see this in the NFL and free agency, right? You get a big-time quarterback like an Aaron Rodgers that is willing to forego X amount of millions to make sure we can retain X amount of receivers, running backs, so on and so forth. That's what you're getting at Oklahoma State right now. So if the players are very, very well aware that we've got to take care of some of these dudes, why don't we, as a university, get behind the PWO program financially to ensure that it's the best in the United States of America, definitely the best in the Big 12. Now you're hearing some talk about, with all the transfers, even some of the coaches, has the Big 12 just become a minor league for the Big 10 and the SEC? Well, if it continues down this path, it very well may end up being that way, which is, in my opinion, precisely why Brett Yormark needs to continue his route of capitalization. Because regardless of what the NCAA is saying, regardless of what direction this whole thing's going to move, stability and security are something that will never be undervalued. Even if it shifts and it morphs and it turns into something entirely different, we need to make sure that we're continuing to be stable. Because if you're stable, you're able to do what? My favorite word, capitalize. Speaking of capitalization, you got to make sure that you have the passion, the drive, and the patience, just like eBay Motors, to bring home the trophy. To bring home the Doak Walker style trophy, you got to have the rig to get there. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your rig and level up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lighting kits. It doesn't matter if you're in speed, power, style. eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to choose from. You'll be able to keep your ride or die rig alive all day, every day. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, the part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, we want you to be in your rig, burning rubber, not cash, with all the parts you need, all the prices you want. Super easy to turn your car into the MVP. Keep your ride or die rig alive today with ebaymotors.com. Make sure you go there today. ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is available for U.S. customers only. Because you're so special. What else is special is the opportunity for Brett Yormark to pounce. The ACC is wild. And, we retrace these steps because I give my some family members of mine that are Miami fans a hard time. I've been telling them for 10, 11 months, hey, ACC is going to fall apart. Miami's going to end up in the Big 12. When I was saying that, I knew there was a percentage chance, but I think maybe it was like 20% chance. I feel like we're at 70% now. Give me Miami. Give me Duke. You know I want Louisville. You know I want Pitt. Let me know down in the comments section what you're thinking. But as you're seeing Big 12 schools go through what we did last year, losing 20 players, 18 players, 14 players, 22 players, and then they're losing their coordinators, like it's not a great look for the Big 12, which is why the Big 12 is looking good for us. Utah has been the toast of the town, right, of the new Big 12 for next season. They have been pretty much since the announcement was made that we're getting the four corner schools. I don't see Deion Sanders going backwards anytime soon. But when you look at your mainstays in the Big 12, your hateful eight, I guess now the OG, triple OGs of the Big 12, even if we are in the ivory tower looking down with not having a lot of transfers and meeting what appears to be the financial constraints bestowed by the great NCAA, we need to continue to put ourselves in a higher tier. So if we stay exactly where we are in the Big 12, I do think that unfortunately we do end up becoming the minor leagues for those other two. And if that happens, then we all know that this model of your 60, 64 halves and then everybody else being the have-nots, that will continue to look more and more realistic. Now, I thought it was kind of surprising that Brett Yormark backed the new president, Mr. Baker, for the NCAA, talking about, having the institutions that make X amount of dollars, over $100 million per year, should play each other as opposed to playing the lower tier. I don't like that. I don't agree with that. And I think one way that we continue to put ourselves in the right direction moving forward, whether this is inevitable or not, you got to continue to eat, right? Be carnivorous. If you see something edible, go eat the daggone thing. The Big Ten would likely pick up Florida State and Clemson. They'd be ridiculous not to. The SEC seems to fancy Virginia and North Carolina over your Miamis, which I think is great for us. Miami gives more travel partners. It gives a direct rival with UCF. Obviously, Pitt helps tremendously with travel, and it gives West Virginia a natural rival. Louisville, it's right in the dead center of all the Big 12 territory, so yeah, that makes sense. Financially, they do a considerable amount of good for the conference that they're currently in, so they would do equally as good for the Big 12, if not better. Then you got to take in consideration basketball. Miami's been pretty good. Pitt is usually pretty good. Like, Louisville can produce. This is great. So even if this is going to go the way of your top 64 teams playing everybody within that 64 group or not, you need to make sure that you're part of the feeding instead of the getting fed on. The ACC, much like the Pac-12, is getting eaten away. We had this conversation almost a year ago. It looked like the writing was already on the wall. And I had a lot of fun with it, right? Because there was obviously a lot of people in this industry that were saying the exact opposite. So it was fun to be part of the Big 12 and on crew. It's going to be even more fun if the second part of this leg comes true. Could you imagine having Miami in this league? The league that doesn't have any blue bloods, the league that just got all the scraps left over. Having Miami would instantaneously boost us, which is great for Oklahoma State. It's good for the Big 12. And then you add Pitt, you add Louisville, you add these travel partners to go alongside Miami. I mean, Duke doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'd be okay with it. I'd prefer probably Virginia Tech over Duke, if I'm being real. But Miami, Louisville, Pitt, 100%. Those schools should already be in. You want to make the argument for Oregon State, Washington State? I'm down for that as well. You want to make the argument that the Big 12 separates itself from the other two leagues that we appear to be, underneath? If we're the first league to get to 20, 22, 24, I think 24 is too many, but If we're the first Super League, the TV numbers are going to be somewhat reminiscent, even if it's more off of volume. And if that happens, and say we get these ACC schools, there's more stability, and it sets us up for a long game. So again, it doesn't matter which direction Brett Yormark thinks it should go. We need to give him as much ammunition as physically possible. And the Big 12 is harder to disseminate if you've got Miami, if you got Louisville, if you got Pitt, if you got Vautech. I mean, Duke's not bad. From a basketball perspective, in Brett Yormark we trust. Okay? He hadn't steered us really wrong yet. Not once. The future schedules of the Big 12 are a little wild, but maybe he already knew it didn't matter. Maybe Brett Yormark knew that the ACC was going to inevitably have some teams join the Big 12, so the future schedules were going to get changed anyways. Dang you, Brett Yormark. I like it. I like it. Tell me what y'all think, obviously. But how nice is it, to have our first Doak Walker winner be a hardcore, tried and true Cowboy that's helping his O-lineman? Isn't it nice to be sitting in this ivory tower, catbird style position? I'll hang up there with you and watch this, Mike Gundy, because this is wonderful. We've lost 6 guys, and the biggest ta-da thus far is that Ollie's coming back and BP's coming back. That's way bigger news than Jaden Bray, Blaine Green, and Gunnar Gundy combined. No offense to those dudes. We all love what they did provide for Oklahoma State when they were here. But BP coming back, Arlen Bruce maybe coming back, Ollie Gordon, 90% of the O-linemen, 80+% of the roster. The core of the secondary seems to be intact. Now, I will say, I do expect one surprise from the secondary. A big one, a really big one. But other than that, we're in pretty good shape. As far as wide receiver goes, I think we might lose one more young cat, but I don't know that he'll leave either. Cornerback room, pretty set, right? We might have some role players, some special teams style of guys in the safety position move on as well, but that is also partially because of the talent we have coming in. Between Gunnar Wilson, Jonathan Agumidu, Tamarick Johnson, Lando Cleveland, David Kabongo, Armstrong Nodum, between that group, I fully anticipate at least 2 of those dudes being on the 2 deep this coming season. So some of the safety secondary style of guys that may be leaving, it's not a big reason to stress because they also see the guys coming in. From a size, speed perspective, they're already pretty squared away. If they can understand the Brian Nardo KISS method, plus a little bit of body by glass, they should be able to play immediately. And I think some of the younger cats know that. But again, 85% of the roster seems to be returning. We're going to be very selective in who we go after in the transfer portal because 2024 is looking more and more and more like the Cowboys' year to go get her did. I love it. You can hang out in that ivory tower right now, Mr. Mike Gundy. After the turnaround, after the exact opposite of what we experienced last year in the transfer portal, having the communication, direction, all that stuff done, down, understood, ready to rock and roll. Yeah, you can cook sausage, bacon, and bacon grits. I don't care. Do whatever you want in that ivory tower. We'll come hang out there with you right now because this is looking real good. All right, y'all. So we're going to have for this one right here. You know I love you. As always, God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. Go like the daggone thing, okay? Share, comment, subscribe, leave a review. Toodaloo. Later, taters.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State.